that refused to get the shot.
It's not as a result of a legal proceeding, and as like a court martial.
Live now. Yep, there we go.
Again, this is administrative discharges, as you know, are a fairly common practice. So the processes are pretty similar across the services.
Reality starting to set in for President Biden and congressional Democrats who had hoped to pass a massive spending bill by Christmas.
After months of division and debate among Democrats, they've come up short in meeting a Christmas deadline to send a $1.75 trillion package to the White House. President Biden has acknowledged that the votes aren't there yet in the 50-50 Senate and that work will continue over the days and weeks ahead.
As White House correspondent Greg Clumpton showing many Americans disenchanted with President Biden and his agenda.
I keep getting like 20 notifications on my Twitter feed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're just
midterm elections.
There was going to be some tough races, but we're going to get a majority, and I think we could, if all of our candidates do well, we could have a nice majority in the Senate next November.
Senator Rick Scott of Florida was interviewed by the Salem Radio Network. More on these stories at townhall.com.
So I invested in one of those fancy new exercise bikes. Without a doubt, a very special tool to help me get healthier. The problem is 3 days go by, then 4, and I've done nothing. And then it's night 5, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and I look down at myself, and I can't help but just laugh. Because there I am, wearing the exercise t-shirt that came with the bike, and I'm eating 2 corn dogs. I think we'd all agree, the special tool only matters if we use it to our benefit. At United Faith Mortgage, we believe we have an advantageous tool for you. Our mortgage team is an arm of a bigger company who is a direct lender, which means our company gets to use its own money and make its own decisions. There's no middleman, and often this allows us to get you a better rate on your refinance or new home purchase, which can save you monthly and lifelong money.
Are you wearing a turtleneck?
Are United Faith Mortgage.
It is. I fold it down again, so it's more like a thicker, like fisherman sweater. Mitch Hedberg says it best: wearing a turtleneck's like being choked all day by a really weak man. Never really been a turtleneck guy.
News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1 and newstalkstl.com.
From the pitch swung a little too soon to the joke told at the wrong time to barely missing your connecting flight, timing is everything. The same can be true for your Social Security benefits. Take them too soon and you could leave a lot of money on the table. Take them too late and you might spend down too much of your savings. Everybody's situation is different, but taking your Social Security benefits at the right time is important for your retirement success. Heisey Advisory Group and our team understand Social Security and can help you make decisions that are best for you and your retirement dreams. Call Heisey Advisory Group today at 314-328-7700 to start optimizing your benefits. With Social Security, timing is everything, so don't delay. Call 314-328-7700. That's 314-328-7700.
Heisey Advisory Group provides insurance services, investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
Adopt US Kids presents
Leah, what's your
What to
last
Expect
name?
When You're Expecting.
Olmsted?
That's
A teenager.
Do you have any family out in Franklin County?
No.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen
I got a supporter out there last
Now, when
named
a teen says
Olmsted.
something is
Really? How does it spell it?
It's exactly
think-
like saying, that's rad.
I've seen somebody spell it like OLM, but mine's
It's
AL.
AL. It's AL.
Another one is totes.
But is it German?
Exactly like
Yeah.
saying,
Probably a number of them around
just
here, I'm
short.
guessing maybe.
As in,
Yeah.
I totes love going
It's
to the
not
mall.
very common, but I have
Another word
seen
you might
it
hear
every so
is
often.
jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous.
Man.
As in,
I'm gonna have to
clothing.
explain my near
Yeah.
choking incident to everybody before we get into it.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
We've largely learned how to conquer it after 2 years, but Joe
like
Biden, Jen
10
Psaki, and the
seconds.
gang continue
All right.
to not give up everything they have gained,
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
continuing to make the pain worse.
Weekdays at 3:30 on News Talk STL.
Good afternoon, St. Louis. This is Paul Kurtman here at the Paul Kurtman Show at News Talk STL 1019 and 94.1. In the studio with me this afternoon. I always got to say this afternoon. This is hard for me. This is Leah, but Leah, it's hard for me to say this afternoon when it's really literally like a minute afternoon. I always want to say good morning.
Yeah.
Still feels like morning to me. But it's not. It's afternoon. And I just want to go ahead and get this out of the way, everybody. Listen, you might hear me clear my throat a little bit from time to time. And I'm not sick. Funny story, sort of. It's kind of painful, but last night my wife made some delicious homemade chicken pot pie. But it was so hot that when I took that first bite, you know how sometimes you have to kind of like pull air in to kind of cool food off if you already got it in your mouth. I did that, and I think I inhaled like a pea or a little piece of chicken or something. But man, something so small is so painful in my neck. I'm like, it feels like it's rattling around in there. So every now and then I just have to clear my throat. I don't know if you've ever done that, Leah, but
I have. When I've taken vitamins and stuff, sometimes that happens.
when I was in the Marine Corps, I was in the jungle warfare survival school in Okinawa, Japan. And we went out for 3 days, and we didn't have food. We each had, like, everybody in my unit, like, we all had one little thing. Like, we had, like, 10 feet of parachute cord. Between all of us, we had, like, one poncho and one bayonet. And what we were supposed to do is go out there and practice our survival skills. One of the things that they taught us to do was catch and butcher chickens out in the jungle. And so on day 3 is when we did this. And that I had never had such delicious chicken in my entire life as I did on day 3 of jungle warfare survival school at JWTC in Okinawa. And I decided that I was gonna save one. We only got like 2 little bites, and I was like, well, man, I'm gonna save this other little piece of chicken. And so I saved it. I put it in my pocket. And probably about within 3 hours, we all had our gear, and we were hiking like to the next position, like on our training itinerary. And we are going up and down hills, and like when the Marines move by foot, like they move fast. Like it's not a slow walk. Like you are moving. You're almost running. And I was like, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and eat this other piece of chicken. So I put it in my mouth. But I was breathing so heavy, I did the same thing. Just sucked it right down like into my lungs. It was the worst experience of my life. Trying to breathe, you know, is bad enough when you're doing this Marine Corps hike, and then getting a piece of chicken stuck deep down in your throat, like in your lungs. That's something else. Anyway, so I'm reliving that whole experience this morning. But something that we're going to have to relive this week is some things that have happened politically. We got some news picks relating to Kamala Harris, Omicron, and then in the third segment today, as always, Libs of TikTok. And this one, I think we ought to save this clip and turn this into like a special clip that we play for some people or maybe for different, you know, things we're talking about. I'm not going to get to it now, but we're going to get to it in the third segment. Folks, make sure that you stick around to listen. And also, you can watch us live in studio. If you go to our YouTube channel, News Talk STL on YouTube, we're streaming live. I'm also streaming live on my Facebook page at Paul Kurtman. And if you want to follow along and see some of the links, watch some of the video clips, listen to some of the sound clips, go to paulkurtman.com. I got all that stuff at paulkurtman.com. Scroll all the way to the bottom, click on number 25, radio number 25. But we're going to go ahead and get into this right now because we've only got about an hour, a little less than an hour now. So just the other night, there is, I think it's on, I don't know if it's on, I'm trying to remember if it's on Comedy Central or what station it's on, but it used to be a podcast, radio show, now it's gone. He's got a television show, Charlemagne the God. Have you heard of Charlemagne the God?
I have not.
Okay, so really pretty much in the black community, he's a figure, has a lot of influence, mainly among the black community, and he's definitely not a conservative. Like, this guy's definitely a liberal. He's way over on the left. Like, he wants Biden's Build Back Better plan to pass. He wants, you know, everything that Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, these type of people promise whenever they run for election. This is what Charlemagne the God, this is the type of policy that he wants. Well, every now and then, though, he will also challenge Democrats, but usually he challenges them because they're not doing what they said they were going to do, which to me, that's great. If a Democrat's not fulfilling their campaign promise to take the country further left, I'm all fine with that. Charlemagne the God challenged Kamala Harris last night on his own television program. They probably had this interview. He probably interviewed her for over 20 minutes. And right at the very end, something really interesting happened. He started asking some questions that I think one of the vice president's handlers wasn't familiar with. So the vice president's handler, this is all happening on TV. Suddenly you hear her talking, and she fakes technical difficulties trying to get the vice president out of the rest of the interview. So we've actually got that clip. I'm going to go ahead and play it right now. Okay. Hold on 1 second. There we go. Now I'm going to play it, and this ought to come right up.
Things in the face of Republican opposition, but we cannot give up. None of us can. And the reality is because the issues are too serious and they impact everybody every day. And I agree with you. They're very serious.
Who's the superhero that's going to speak against Joe Manchin? No. I want to know who's the real president of this country. Is it Joe Biden or Joe Manchin?
I'm sorry. I just want to interrupt and ask the question. Just a moment. I'm so sorry, Charlemagne. We have to wrap.
She can hear me.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me, Madam Vice President?
I'm sorry. We got to wrap. So I'm sorry to interrupt.
They're acting like they can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, so who's the real president of this country? Is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden, Madam Vice President?
Come on, Charlemagne. It's Joe Biden.
I can't tell sometimes.
No. It's Joe Biden. And don't start talking like a Republican about asking whether or not he's president.
Do you think Joe Manchin is a problem?
It's Joe Biden, and I'm vice president, and my name is Kamala Harris. And the reality is, because we are in office, we do the things like the child tax credit.
Okay, so that is the clip of Kamala Harris being grilled by Charlemagne the God because he's challenging her on this Build Back Better. He's like, who's the real president here? Is it Joe Biden or is it Joe Manchin, right? And so you've got to watch the video. The sound clip doesn't do it justice only because it's Kamala Harris. Now, when Kamala Harris gets angry or frustrated, or when she gets this I'm better than you attitude, she starts waving her finger, she starts bobbing her head back and forth. And so when you watch this interview, this is exactly what she does. Charlemagne the God says, who's the real president? Is it Joe Biden or is it Joe Manchin? Who's going to stand up and be the superhero and push back against Joe Manchin? Is it going to be you? Who's the real president here? Joe Biden or Joe Manchin? And Kamala, now this is where Kamala's handlers do not want the interview to go, which is why you could hear, you might not have been able to understand what she was saying, but it was Kamala's, one of her aides that was stepping in and saying, oh, I'm sorry, we have to wrap, we can't hear you, we've lost all sound. And Charlemagne challenges and he says, no. He turns around and looks at his audience, he's like, they're pretending like they can't hear us. And at that point, Kamala Harris says, I can hear you because one thing about Kamala Harris, one observation that I've made is she thinks she's so smart. She thinks she's better than everybody else. She's very condescending. She kind of has that cackle, when she wants to kind of put you down with her fake laugh. But her pride always gets the best of her. And if somebody says, oh, she's pretending like she can't hear us, that's all you got to say is, oh, she's pretending like this. She's pretending like that. No. If you want to catch her like really exposing herself for who she is, which is exactly what Charlemagne did here inadvertently, I think, because he's an ally of theirs, no doubt about it. But he said she's pretending like she can't hear us. And then she interrupts her aide who's saying we have to wrap, we've lost all sound. She says, no, I can hear you. And then don't start talking like a Republican, starts waving her finger, bobbing her head back and forth. Come on, don't do this. No. And then, because she can't help herself from plugging herself, making herself look like a victim here. Obviously, Charlemagne is challenging her, saying, who's the president? Is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden? He's not even talking about her. He's leaving her completely out of it. But what does she do? And I'm the vice president, as my name is Kamala Harris. So this is just this is a video that you got to see. You can find it at paulkurtman.com. It's one of the first clips that we got up there. This is just really speaks to, I think, a lot of her unlikability, because her polling right now indicates that she is really tanking also. And Tucker Carlson had a really good clip last night about CNN. He went through all these different prospective presidential candidates. Like, in 2024, who's going to run? Because CNN, they did the math. And by the time Joe Biden finishes his second term in office, he's going to be 86 years old. That's an old president.
Yeah.
I mean, and already, I mean, he's not even his first year into office. And it seems like he's really already slipping cognitively. Like, I mean, when you read, end of quote, off a teleprompter at a live press conference or at a live speech, you might not be the best person to continue reading off of teleprompters as you continue to lead the nation. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't think, and the thing is like the people on the left know this too. Anyway, CNN, they went ahead and put together, well, if not Joe Biden, who? And Kamala Harris doesn't really rank high on their list. J.B. Pritzker, they looked at Pete Buttigieg. They looked at a number of different people. One of the people that they're looking at, which would be a complete nightmare for the country, is is it Whitmore from Michigan? This is the governor in Michigan who just locked down she was one of the first people to completely lock down the entire state and shut everything down. I mean, she is quick to authoritarian behavior, quick to authoritarian action, quick to use law enforcement to come in and start keeping people in their houses. That's one of the people who CNN has high on their list as a potential presidential candidate for the Democrat Party in 2024. Any thoughts, Leah? You like Governor Whitmore?
No.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
So CNN is already kind of moving down that road, but it's if you want to know why Kamala Harris doesn't rank very high, and you can probably speak to this much better than I can, Leah. From what I understand, women are much harder on other women than men are. And Kamala Harris, I can only suspect that among the women demographic, whether you're on the right or the left, probably that kind of condescending, I'm better than you, kind of cackle probably plays really bad, just like socially speaking. Okay. Thanks for confirming.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for. That's how I feel about it, and that's what I've been told by some other people. And I mean, if I feel that way about Kamala Harris, because like I feel like I could never be friends with her. Just because of who she is, how she acts.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like I couldn't be friends with her. It's just kind of hard to get along with. Always like having you feel like you're just not, good as she is. Anyway, that's what's going on with CNN right now and their potential prospects. But I would highly recommend that you go to paulkurtman.com and you watch this video and get a much better understanding of exactly why it is people are not looking to Kamala Harris to fill Joe Biden's shoes for 2024. Another problem, and this is something that Charlemagne the God was kind of pointing to, it's the fact that in this interview, he said, why can't we get Build Back Better done? What is it about Joe Manchin? Why is it Joe Manchin gets to be in charge of so much about the president's major keystone piece of legislation in his first year? Well, the Democrats have tried to appease Joe Manchin, and I will even go so far as to say that Joe Manchin has done more than some Republicans have done in trying to stave off some more financial disaster with some of this social spending that President Biden wants to do. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Omicron variant. We have a professional, we have an expert talking about the data that's cherry-picked by other experts and how President Biden is using that to divide people as we get closer and closer to the midterms and then ultimately the next presidential cycle. Come right back here, News Talk, STL 1019 and 94.1. All right. Joe Manchin.
sorry I don't talk more.
That's all right. It is radio. I've asked you a question. You're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like nodding.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like you're teaching me though. I feel like I'm in like a class and you're the teacher and just like lecturing. I'm learning. So I just wish I could provide feedback or
Just say whatever you want to say. Totally fine. I'll let everybody take a look at you. This is Leah. Oh, no. There we go. That's Leah. Everybody wondering.
Were they really wondering?
Yeah, they're wondering. Everybody's commenting. They're like, who's Leah?
Or give us a call and book our food truck.
There we go.
More info at supersmokers.com.
Do you own an annuity, either fixed rate, indexed, or variable? Are you paying high fees and getting low returns? If so, Annuity General would like you to have this free book to learn the pitfalls and mistakes of buying an annuity. The Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers contains the little-known truths about annuities, like how to help reduce your fees and increase retirement income. And it's free. That's right, free. As a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report just for calling. We researched over 1,000 annuities and summarized rates and benefits from financially strong insurers. You get Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers and the Annuity Rate Report, both absolutely free for calling Annuity General today. Hurry, supplies are limited. Call now.
800-649-8619. 800-649-8619. 800-649-8619. That's 800-649-8619.
What is dedication?
My daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. If there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around. And I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear
Dedication.
more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
If a natural disaster comes knocking, how prepared is your family? You can't just close the door on earthquakes, floods, or hurricanes and hope they go away. That's why it's important to make a plan now. Ready.gov/plan has the tools and tips you need to prepare your family for an emergency. So if disaster shows up at your doorstep, you'll be ready. Visit ready.gov/plan and make a plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Conservative talk for St. Louis.
It's your patriotic right duty.
All right.
Shut up and do its job.
This is News Talk STL.
It's well-balanced conversation.
News, analysis, opinion.
All right. We are back. This is Paul Kurtman, right here at News Talk STL. And just before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about the Build Back Better plan, or as I like to call it, the Build Back Better beatdown. Because in order to pay for Build Back Better, one thing that the left had to do was substantially strengthen the enforcement arm of the IRS to start going after people in order to find every little penny, start closing different types of loopholes that people have been using in order to avoid making the government bigger and stronger by sending them more money. Leah, listen, a few minutes ago you were saying, talking about learning about things. Here's a little thing that I think will help people understand the importance of not sending more taxes to the government if you want to be an advocate of limited government. And here's what it looks like. Here's the illustration. I used to use this when I was in the Missouri House of Representatives. Money's like food. The more food that you feed a child, the bigger and the stronger and the more healthy that child is going to be, right? Mm-hmm. Well, money's also If you give food to a child, bigger, stronger, healthier, that child's going to become. But money, the more money you feed the government, the bigger, stronger, more robust and strong the government's going to be, because now it has more money. It's like nutrition for the government. It feeds and strengthens the government. But it also works the same way for the economy. The more money you feed into your economy, the bigger, stronger, healthier, and more robust the economy can be. So people need to get this figured out and understand a little bit about how money works, how taxes works, and what are the sometimes even unintended consequences of raising taxes. Listen, the consequences are fully predictable, even if they are unintended. The more money that we give the government, the stronger, more robust the government becomes. And Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan, that's exactly what he's doing. What he's doing is he's putting a child basically on the pedestal and saying, feed this child. But what this child, the name of this child is Build Back Better. And what it's going to do is it's going to control the way that we live, the way that we eat, the way that we sleep, the way that we breathe, the way that we work. It's just more of the nanny state, taking care of people cradle to grave, robbing them of their liberty. And the only way that this works is if Build Back Better robs the Americans of their tax dollars. And that's why in Build Back Better, he has to strengthen the IRS, so that way the IRS has more equipped, has more strength and more power to come after people for every last little penny, because we got to feed this child called Build Back Better so the government can get bigger and stronger. I would advocate, no. Let's not do that. Let's make the economy bigger. Let's make the economy stronger, because that's where we find more freedom, more choices, when we have more money to make decisions that we want to make with. Now, I'm just getting a little bit wonky here, philosophically speaking, but right now, Joe Manchin is the one that's been stepping in the way, and it looks right now to this point, I think the consensus is that Build Back Better is not going to happen this year. Now, I was talking to Mike Ferguson, who has a morning show every morning right here on News Talk, STL, 1019, 94.1. I think I was on with him maybe, it was Wednesday or Thursday, but we were talking a little bit about this, like, well, what's the future for Build Back Better? I don't think it winds up happening at all. I told Paul Kick this a couple weeks ago, the longer we wait to do Build Back Better, if we don't get it done in the first year, then it's much less likely to get done at all. Now, we're not talking about a little insignificant bill that's just a little controversial. We're talking about an incredibly large spending bill, not just spending for things like just infrastructure. This is often being referred to as a social spending bill. So we are going to be spending money in here that influences and coerces people to literally live differently. There's a big, there's climate change, and there's all other kinds of stuff that they're trying to pack into this bill. One of the things that they got in the bill is they want free childcare, right? So this is just a huge socialist, progressive push that Joe Biden's trying to push with this Build Back Better. Now, here's the thing. Politically speaking, from my experience, these are some observations that I've made, and so I've got a couple predictions here. I think that the closer that you get to even the midterms, if Joe Biden wants to get anything done at all in the 4 years, he needs to hold on to the House and the Senate. So the first election, the midterm election that's next on the docket for the American voters is the midterm election. That's where we're going to be voting for all the members of the U.S. House of Representatives. They're all going to be on the ballot, and half the U.S. senators. I think like half the U.S. senators. I don't remember like what the formula is, like odds or even whatever, which states. But there's going to be a lot of U.S. senators also on the ballot. Not all of them, but there's going to be a lot of U.S. senators also on the ballot. So right now, in order if Joe Biden wants to have any hope of getting anything done at all in his 4 years, right now, since they weren't able to get this done, all their energy is now going to be pivoting back and making sure that their legislative priorities are matching what voters want to see happen in order to help convince them and convict them about voting for the left come the midterm elections. This is going to be increasingly harder, though, because they're going to have to start moving back to the center, legislatively speaking. But I don't know if they're going to be able to do that when you got people like AOC and Cori Bush constantly wanting to pull them back to the far, far, far socialist authoritarian left. So the Democrats have found themselves in quite a predicament where they're not going to be able to get anything done because it's all hinging on what happens on the midterm elections, and their legislative priorities are going to have to get closer to the center, if not straight up outright over on the right side of the aisle to make the American people feel much better about voting for Democrats come the midterm. So I don't think Biden gets anything done. I don't think this Build Back Better plan, I don't think it ever happens. And if they lose the House and the Senate, then nothing happens for the president's agenda. Nothing happens for the next 4 years, which is what I'm really, really hopeful. I really hope that that's the route that we take, that none of his leftist agenda passes. I do want President Biden to be strong. He is, he's our commander-in-chief. As far as the world is concerned, they look to him as a symbol of strength of the U.S. So I want him to be strong. I want him to be strong on the world stage. I want him to really exude power. But legislatively speaking, what happens domestically, I don't want him to be successful with his leftist agenda. Now, that being said, President Biden, I don't want him to be successful for a couple reasons, but he's really, really trying. He's really trying. He's really, really pushing the envelope here when it comes to COVID, especially this Omicron variant. Now, we've got another clip, and this is from Fox News. And in this clip, Marsha, who is it? Is a congressman from Ohio is being interviewed along with a doctor, I think, from Johns Hopkins University. Let's go ahead and see if I can get this clip played. Okay. I'm having just a little bit of a problem here, folks. I'm going to get to this clip here in just 1 second. But President Biden, over the course of the year, has been very, very clear about how COVID is not about our freedom. It's about government control. Okay, I got this clip up. Let's go ahead and do it.
Joining us is Ohio Congressman Warren Davidson and Dr. Marty McCary of Johns Hopkins University. First to you, doctor, let me just get through these studies. South Africa study, just 10% of the hospitalizations are from the Omicron variant versus a Delta variant. But a UK study, the Imperial College of London, says Omicron has the same severity as a Delta variant. And there's another one that from Hong Kong and Columbia University, Omicron is resistant to vaccines. Can you break down what's happening?
Sure, Liz. We're not getting the full story. There's a lot you're not hearing about, and what you're seeing is a cherry picking of information and studies out there that is creating this ugly picture about Omicron. But let me tell you, antibody titers are just...
Okay, I'm going to pause it right now because we don't need to get into some of those details. But what he's saying now, this is a doctor from Johns Hopkins University. And what he's saying is that the so-called experts out there are cherry-picking the data, and they're cherry-picking data in a way to make it sound like the Omicron variant is way, 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 way worse than it actually is. Now, this would lead you to believe that they have an agenda here. Like, there's a reason that you want to make it sound really, really bad. I've got some ideas about that, right? I mean, the worse it sounds, the more strength and power and authority we wind up handing over to the pharmaceutical industry, which for some reason now has become the newest and latest god of the far left. It used to be that the pharmaceutical industry was the great evil, the great Satan of the left, right? You got people like, what was that one guy's name? Pharma Bro. Schmerkelly or whatever his name was, the guy who was upping the prices of like EpiPens or something, like thousands and thousands of %. And this guy became the poster boy for everything that's wrong with the pharmaceutical industry. And they said Pfizer was bad, and they said Moderna was bad. All of these pharmaceutical companies were so bad. But now that they're being used to help strengthen and empower the size and scope of government, then now the left loves them. They're the new savior of the world. And so you have to almost cherry pick data to make things sound really, really bad under these circumstances in order to help strengthen the power and control of government. Now, in the same interview, they also interviewed a congressman from Ohio. And the congressman, he's relaying his thoughts on why it is that they're doing this. And he says that it's because it feeds into President Biden's agenda of dividing people.
Instead of persuading the unvaccinated, as the rest of his agenda is failing.
Yeah, I think he's looking for someone to blame, and a continuing of the trend to divide America. There's got to be one group versus another. It seems to be the whole mantra. Divide the country, pit one group against the other, and then the solution's always the same for Democrats: is more government. So if things aren't as bad as the doctor was explaining, that doesn't really fit with Joe Biden's prescription. Joe Biden wants to
COVID situation has been being used. And what's so sad about this, too, is we know And I don't hear a lot of people talking about this. Everybody needs to be talking about this from behind every microphone, from in front of every single camera across the country. It needs to be on everybody's Facebook page. I'm thinking about changing my Facebook profile to just some words that get this point across. The United States government, the National Institute of Health, they admitted in a letter to a congressman that they funded a nonprofit called EcoHealth to fund the gain of function that created the coronavirus. So what we've seen happen around the world, this pandemic that they like to use to usher in a new wave of authoritarianism all around the world, from America to Australia to countries in Europe, this was all created thanks in large part, if not in whole part, to the National Institute of Health, an American organization, an American entity using American tax dollars to create it. Millions of people are dead. Nobody's been fired. And what does Joe Biden have to say about it? Joe Biden says stuff like, get your vaccine. I'm losing patience with the American people. The American people need to get vaccinated. I'm going to force every business in America to tell their employees, get vaccinated or you're getting fired. And you know what, businesses? If you don't fire the unvaccinated, then you're going to be fined thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Playing the role of the bully. Do you think President Biden really cares about your freedom? Do you really think he cares about keeping you free? This is a man who took an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And right now, the biggest threat to our Constitution and our freedom is coming from the Oval Office. It's coming from Joe Biden. Even when the courts are saying, no, you can't do this, he's wanting to do stuff anyway, whether it's the borders or whether it's these mandates that he has. In fact, here's a clip. I'll see if I can bring this up of him recently.
This summer, we made progress through the combination of vaccine requirements and incentives, as well as the FDA approval. 4 million more people got their first shot in August than they did in July. We need to do more. This is not about freedom or personal choice. It's about protecting yourself and those.
Okay, he said it himself. That was earlier this year in a press conference, in a speech he was giving to the American people. You got to get vaccinated. You have to do this. You have to. It's not about your freedom. It's not about your personal choice. It's about your protection. One of the quotes that is often attributed to Benjamin Franklin comes when they were involved in ratifying the U.S. Constitution. And Benjamin Franklin is reported to have said, those who would trade their liberty for security deserve neither and will lose both. And so if you want to say right now, if the left wants to say, if President Biden wants to say this is not about your freedom, it's not about your personal choice, it's about your protection. So get in line, get in step, and comply. Well, then he's just completely exposed himself as somebody who's trying to undermine the entire mission of this great American experiment, and that is to protect and preserve the individual liberty of the people of our nation. And the thing is so many people on the left, they are pushing and pushing and pushing for the demise of their own liberty. I've had people ask me before. I've heard people discuss it. We've discussed it on air from time to time. What is going on? Do people just not know? No, people do know. If you think that people on the left don't understand what it is they're doing by helping erode and flake away and chip away our freedom, our personal choice in America, if you think that they don't know, you are incredibly misunderstanding exactly what's going on. Some people are just bad. You can't excuse everything away by saying people are stupid. Some people are just bad. In fact, when we come back, you're going to hear the anger in their voices. Because in our next segment, it's Libs of TikTok. And we're going to be playing that clip right when we come back. We're here at News Talk STL 1019 94.1. Oh man, I almost lost my clip.
Oh really?
I almost lost it.
Oh yeah. Is it just not playing?
No, I had the wrong tab open.
Oh.
I had to find
As
it.
temperatures are cooling down for the
On air.
winter, it seems that everything is going up, and costing more. Gas, food, entertainment, clothing, all are costing more. Not at the Fur and Leather Center. Come in today and save 50% on our newest collection of furs, capes, jackets, stoles, convertibles, gloves, hats, and more. Selected items are up to 80% off. Fur has been prized for centuries for its warmth, durability,
The Republicans
wearability,
have to
and
stop.
style. Come to the Fur Center, 7901 Clayton Road, for the warmest and most beautiful furs for 50% off retail. We've consolidated our inventory from our East Coast stores to bring you the greatest values of the season. Hurry in for the best selection and the best price. That's the Fur Center at 7901 Clayton Road, or on
This is
the
probably
web
one of the
at
best. This is,
furcenter.com.
listen to this. I'm gonna play this.
Okay.
Hey, is that a faucet
I'm just gonna play it right from my computer.
Vote is being repressed. This is evil. This is wrong. The Republicans have to stop. I'm terrified. Listen to me, Republicans. Listen.
That's not a
You are the people in history they warned us about. They warned us about people like you.
This is a liberal making her liberal post on TikTok.
So angry.
Oh man, that's how they are.
Forest does more than give us clean air and water. It gives us shade
That's
for
a good
hot
one.
days, birds
That's one of
to
my
listen to,
favorites.
and trees to climb. Wow, that's awesome. I didn't know how cool the forest could be. Hey, let's go explore some more.
Visit the forest today and enjoy all it does just for you. To learn more about the forest and find one near you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you
You
by
see the
the U.S.
Biden
Forest
stickers
Service.
they have over here?
No.
That say I did that?
Oh man, like for gas pumps.
Yeah.
I've seen people putting those on gas pumps.
Braces like the other kids, but their families can't afford them. Some may even
How many
try
are
to
there over
straighten
there?
their teeth themselves.
Five.
That
I don't know
can
what they're
make
for. I wanted to
everything
take one, but I was
worse.
like, I don't know what
Luckily,
those are
there's
for.
Donated Orthodontic Services,
Hope
a
they make more,
program
though.
from the American Association of Orthodontists.
Yeah,
It
I've
helps
seen those
provide
all over on
orthodontic
gas pumps.
treatment to kids
Yeah,
and
I
teens
think it's
whose
great.
families can't afford it. For kids who apply, are approved, and are matched with a volunteer orthodontist, it can be life-changing. Their
Okay.
treatment is in the hands of an expert, a licensed local orthodontic specialist who improves their smiles by correctly aligning teeth and
Okay,
jaws.
what time are we leaving on this last one? What time are
Some
we cutting
kids
out?
think they'll never smile again, but donated
Okay. I'll
orthodontic
probably
services
start
may
using it
help
at
them smile
56.
with confidence. To link to the application
Okay.
and eligibility requirements,
Number hard out on
visit
50.
aaoinfo.org.
It's our first Christmas, and Newstalk STL wants you to have the gift. Along with the Fur Center, St. Louis's premier fur and leather center, we're giving one lucky winner a mink cape with fox trim for Christmas. Register to win now at newstalkstl.com.
Oh, we're going. Oh.
Hey, Nick. How's life? I don't know. It's alright. I've been dealing with some things like every human being and really didn't sleep much last night. I'm sorry. That's fine. I just think I need a little me time. I just think I need a little free time. A little break from the shows and the bus rides.
All right, we are back. We are now in the final segment of the Paul Kerman Show here at News Talk STL 101.9 and 94.1. And Leah is joining me today. And Leah, you've joined me once or twice before. And in the third segment, I always like to play a good clip from Libs of TikTok. And if you don't know what Libs of TikTok is, you can find them on Twitter. You can find them on Instagram at Libs of TikTok. And what this is, and nobody really knows who she is. I just assumed it was a guy because I don't know. But she finally did an interview on Fox News. And just over the phone. Nobody knows her name. No one knows what she looks like. But she had this great idea of like, you know what? There's so much leftist ranting and nonsense and craziness out there on TikTok and all these social media sites. So she has started pulling them all together. And now you can find the craziness and lunacy of the far left all in one or two places on social media, either on Instagram or on Twitter. And so, you know what? These folks want exposure. The left wants exposure. That's why they're making these posts, right? So we just help them out. We give them a little bit of exposure. We give them a little bit of airtime. But before we do that, we're going to play this clip here in just a second. These people are just unhinged. But before we do that, inflation now, right? We're creeping up right around 7% inflation. To give everybody an idea of exactly what that means, if you had to buy something last year that cost you $1, 1 year ago today, you bought something that cost you $1. Today, you would need $1.07 to buy the exact same thing because your money's worth less, so you need more of it to purchase the same item that you might have wanted to purchase just last year for only $1. Today it would cost you maybe about $1.07. So what this means is it means that from week to week, month to month, goods and services are becoming more costly for the American family. Now, where does this come from? Where does all this inflation come from? Well, what it means is it means you've got too much money floating around in the economy. There's too much money in circulation. So when there's more dollars out there, each one of them becomes worth less, right? Because they're not as scarce as they were a year ago. The more money we pump into the economy, the more money that gets pumped into circulation, the less those same dollars are worth. So the Federal Reserve, which is not a government bank. Were you aware of this, Leah? Did you know that the Federal Reserve is a private bank?
I was not.
Yeah, Federal Reserve now was created through government authority, but the Federal Reserve is not in and of itself something that's owned, right, like by the federal government. The people that are there, the leadership, the board of governors, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, these are people that are picked by our elected leaders in government, the president, and then appointments through the Senate, and Congress is involved. And so the government's involved, but the Federal Reserve has a lot of autonomy to manage the value of our money. Now, they keep talking about, is inflation, is it transitory? Is it something that we're just experiencing right now? And then once the economy kind of catches back up, things will get better and inflation will come back down? Right now, the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell and other economists, usually the economists that you find on the left side of the aisle, they say, oh, no. Right now, our ports are bottlenecked. So the reason inflation, it's not really because there's so much money out there, but a big reason for inflation is because there's less goods on the shelves. So they raise prices because it's more competitive among consumers as they compete for a more increasingly limited amount, for a limited amount of goods. The less goods we have on the shelves, the higher the prices go as consumers compete to buy those goods. And then you have people on the other side of the aisle like me saying, well, a big part of this also has to do with the fact that there's just so much more money that's been printed and created. You have more money out there. And some people are saying, hey, we're getting hit from both sides. So recently, one of President Obama's economic advisors, just over the last couple days, he's been sending out tweets calling out the Federal Reserve and Chairman Jerome Powell specifically for not helping us get ahead of inflation. People are saying, no, once these ports get cleaned up, inflation's going to come back down. That's a very shallow and narrow-minded view of what's causing inflation right now because there's so many different variables. But this is what he had to say. He said in an opinion in the Washington Post, he said, there have been few, if any, instances in which inflation has been successfully stabilized without recession. So this guy is predicting that the only thing that's going to stabilize inflation is not clearing up our ports, but it's going to be a recession, something that helps us bring some stability, right? We need a correction in order to help us begin to even out some of these price increases that we've seen because of inflation. He goes on and he says, every U.S. economic expansion between the Korean War and Paul Volcker's slaying of inflation after 1979 ended as the Federal Reserve tried to put the brakes on inflation. So in other words, I'm going to interrupt you here. In other words, as the Federal Reserve becomes more involved in trying to manage the money, right? Trying to manage inflation, trying to manage the financial situation of our monetary policy, the more they become involved, the worse things get. He continues, inflation in the economy skidded into recession. Since Volcker's victory over inflation, there have been no major outbreaks of inflation until this year. So just to put this in perspective, he's talking about something that happened back in 1979, something that happened over 40 years ago. And he's saying that there hasn't been any major outbreaks of inflation in the last 40 years. He goes on, and so no need for monetary policy to engineer a soft landing of the kind that the Fed hopes for over the next several years. Why? Because he's saying that probably what's going to happen is we're going to wind up steering ourselves into a recession because historically that's been what it has been that's pulled America out of these times and moments in our history where we've had exceedingly high inflation, recessions. So this is something pretty interesting to consider the fact that every time the Federal Reserve gets more involved in our monetary policy to try to put the brakes on a problem that they helped create, they actually just wind up making the situation worse. But what fixes the situation? The economy, the markets, a correction, a pullback in the economy, which is something that happens naturally in a free market system. People decide they're just going to make changes to the way they spend money. That's what this economist is saying. I think his name is Summers. But you can find that also. I got that written up here at paulkurtman.com, right down here at radio number 25. Now, here in the next couple minutes, now I want your thoughts on this, Leah. I know you've heard this before, but I'm going to play it again because it seems like the more social media platforms we have, the more people get pulled in and sucked into politics and it kind of starts to dominate their lives. We're seeing more of this type of behavior, but it's almost always, I don't want to say it's exclusively on the left, but like 99.999% of it is all on the left. This is one of my favorite clips. This kind of encapsulates the behavioral aura of the left altogether. Let's listen to this lady. She's pretty upset about some stuff here.
This is evil. This is wrong. The Republicans have to stop. I'm terrified. Listen to me, Republicans. Listen. You are the people in history they warned us about. They warned us about people like you.
Okay. There you have it, Leah. You have any friends? You have any friends like that?
Oh, no, thank God.
Do you know anybody on the left like that? Because I feel like everybody on the left, if they're not this way already, they are going to be this way probably in the next year.
Great.
Yeah. Look. She says everything with the same tone and temperament. You go to paulkurtman.com, you can see her face as she's screaming into the camera from inside of her car. This is what the left is. This is what they are. She's screaming, "Listen, Republicans, listen. You are the people," and she says it so dramatically. "You are the people that they warned us about," right? I don't know if she's trying to sound like British or something, but suddenly she gets a little bit of an accent. "You're the people they warned us about." Who warned you about Republicans? Look, who's warning anybody about Republicans?
Yeah.
You know who is warning people about Republicans? Democrats in the 1860s South. They were warning people about Republicans. You know who else is warning people about Republicans? The earliest founding fathers. And we can call it mental illness. We can call people on the far left and say, "Oh, no, they're just uninformed." You know, in some cases, that's true. But what about the people at the very, very top of the political hierarchy who are on the far left? Are they also just uninformed, or are they bad people? Was Joseph Stalin a bad guy or a stupid guy? He was a bad guy. He was responsible for the deaths of millions and millions and millions and millions of people that did not comply with his political ideology and his government. Joseph Stalin wasn't a stupid person. He was a bad person. But the problem is when we talk to people about should you be more free or less free, should you have more opportunity or less opportunity, some people are going to say, well, as long as the government will take care of me, I'm good with less freedom. I'm good with less opportunity. Those people might be ignorant. They might be uninformed. They might just not know. They might not have had the education yet. But the higher they climb that political ladder and wield influence and create mandates and force and use the force of government, that's when we begin to know that they're not uninformed people. They're just bad people. So take that into the next election cycle and consider that when you're talking with your friends. We can still win people over for the cause of liberty, but listen, you can't excuse all bad behavior as people that are just uninformed. Sometimes they're just bad people. All right, that's the end of our show today here at News Talk STL. This is Paul Kurtman here in the studio with Leah, and we will be back next week from 12 to 1 right here at News Talk STL 101.9 and 94.1.
Thinking maybe I should move out.
Staff Sergeant Mark Anthony Madrid.
Staff Sergeant Samantha Cowell.
Staff Sergeant
I am
Alex.
Staff
Sergeant William Lewis, and I am proud to defend. In my family and our nation.
The Air Force Reserve is part of the story of this great nation.
Yeah, did we make it out? Did we get cut off?
We did not make it out.